Hey, Miles Beckler here, milesbeckler.com, and this video is answering the question, what is FU money and how is FU money different from your emergency fund? So in the first video in this personal finance series, we talked about your emergency fund and the importance of having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses kind of set aside. So that video is linked to in the description. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend watching that and getting your emergency fund together. So that brings us to what is FU money? And honestly, FU money stands for fuck you money. It is literally that level of money at which you can begin totally not caring about bosses, jobs, businesses, clients, etc. It is that level of walk away money. And this is in contrast to the emergency fund, which I would deem as oh shit money, right? Like, oh shit, I lost my job, or oh shit, I got a panda slap and my website's not generating income anymore. That's where the emergency fund comes in. But the FU money is definitely, that's like next level stuff right there. FU money is essentially a number that will allow you to live off of the interest it generates, or not interest in this day and age, more like the investment return on investments that it generates, and you can live the rest of your life. So there are people in kind of the blogosphere writing a lot about this kind of stuff who have retired very early. A lot of them in late 20s, early 30s, 40s. People are able to retire and live very inexpensively on the returns on investments from very simple index fund investments. I'm not going to get too deep into the types of investments today. We're going to talk about that in future videos. This is about the kind of bigger picture idea, right? The FU money level. So how does it work, right? Well, there's two variables. The first variable is how much are you spending every year? What is your lifestyle cost right now? And the second variable is how much do you need to have a safe withdrawal rate to be able to withdraw enough every year to pay for your living expenses, but not mess with the principal, so that can stay in there and generate more return next year so you can have your income next year. Ultimately, this is a form of retirement. It's retiring early, and it is the true, honest financial independence level. Now, there are some numbers. There was a study done, I believe it was in the mid to late 1990s, and it's known as the Trinity Study. And if you want to look it up, the Trinity Study, it essentially looks at what the safe withdrawal rate is for a standard portfolio, and they had it with a couple of different asset allocations. Now, if you don't understand what that is, that's fine. I'm going to explain it in future videos. Essentially, an asset allocation is what percent of stocks and what percent of bonds held in an index fund. And an index fund is essentially a group of stocks, right? So there's one index fund that I like that literally is every single stock in the United States of America. So by buying one share of the index fund, I'm holding a tiny piece of over 3,000 companies. All right, so back to that safe withdrawal rate and the Trinity Study. Now, the Trinity Study ran a bunch of models across history of the data of our stock market, and it essentially came to the conclusion that you have a 96% probability of being able to withdraw 4% of your kind of investment every year for 30 years plus and not run out of money. So what does that mean, right? Well, if you reverse that 4%, that means that you need 25 times your actual lifestyle costs sitting in a secure, long-term, low-cost index fund, and then in that situation, you kind of go across the finish line. That is mathematically what FU money is. So let's break it down even farther, right? Let's say you can live off of $50,000 per month. And real quick, the fastest way to get there is learn to live on less and save as much as you can and put it in your investment fund every single year. If you do those two things at the same time and you get comfortable living on $50,000, $40,000, $30,000 per year, and you're able to sock more and more and more into your Vanguard and your index fund account, that is the fastest path to retiring early. And that's what we're talking about here. So if you are living on, and you can live comfortably on $50,000 a year, you would need 25 times $50,000 per year, which is $1.25 million sitting in an index fund. And with that there, you're able to withdraw $50,000 per year. You'll never mess with your principal. And the honest odds are, and the numbers in the Trinity Study show, that there's a better chance of your principal growing beyond $1 into $2 and $3 million by the time 30 years roll around. So the odds are actually way in favor of it continuing to grow. Sounds like a lot of money though, right? Like $1.25 million set aside, that's 12 plus years of putting 100 grand away if you haven't started yet. And that's okay, we can get there. The other way to look at it, right? So let's tweak it again here and kind of take another approach of, let's see what it's like if we're living on less. And if you're living on $30,000 a year, I got the numbers behind me here. So 25 times $30,000 a year is $750,000. So if you've got $750,000 sitting in index funds, you are pretty much low cost. Got to be a low cost index fund. Needs to be like 0.25% or less, preferably less, like 0.1% in actual fees for the index fund. That's Vanguard. That's what Vanguard does, is low cost index funds. So you would need $750,000 sitting in an index funds in order to withdraw $30,000 per year. And if you can live off of $30,000 per year, you've reached this kind of like FU money stage, right? You're able to literally let go of a job, of all sources of income, and you're able to retire at that point in time. Here's the interesting thing. Everyone that I've seen and read about and learned about who have crossed that theoretical threshold of FU money, they might take some time off, they might travel, they might change their lifestyle a little bit. One thing they seem to do is keep working. They just shift what they do to something that's fun to them. They might start a blog, they might start a YouTube channel, they might start finding products and doing import things because they're traveling to low-cost areas. And it's really interesting to me that a lot of people go from a traditional job, they save up, they work really hard for 10, 20 years, they quote unquote retire, and then they end up fiddling around with this internet stuff and they end up making twice as much as they did from their website because it becomes a passion project. And that's really what makes FU money so special, is you're not really saying FU to everybody and to the whole thing, right? And you're just gonna sit around and watch TV all day. That'd be horrible. That'd be a terrible lifestyle. What you're saying is, I'm done earning income in this way, and I have saved enough, and I've got my lifestyle down enough, and I've invested intelligently enough that I'm able to say, F you to the boss, I'm done. And then you get to listen to your inspiration. You get to listen to what's in your heart, what your calling is, and you get to move in that direction. And oftentimes people seem to find things that elevate their income even farther, so they're able to add even more, and their nest egg grows and grows, and potentially they can withdraw more every year and enjoy a growing lifestyle year over year. This is in stark contrast to the kind of system that was explained to me by my parents, and that was explained to my parents by the grandparents, of just get a job and work for 40 years, do 40 hours a week in a job you don't like, and it's okay because at some point you'll be able to have a pension and Social Security and everything will be fine. I don't trust in that system. I don't want to work a job that I don't like. I couldn't do it for more than like 5 years, so why would I ever consider doing it for 40 years? And this is really common in kind of my generation and the millennials. We don't want to just go work some shit job just because everybody says you're supposed to work a shit job for 40 years. We want to create positive change. We want to create. We want to do fun things in this world. So this is really an interesting concept. And when I latched onto this kind of FU money idea, what it did for me is it gave me a target, right? It got me realizing that A, I need to know exactly how much I'm spending per year and how much I can live off of per year. And B, I need to start putting money into these index funds, and I need to start playing this game so I can be building my FU money account so I ultimately can have this totally separate from my business source of income through my managed assets that literally I could live off of. At this point, I'm going full speed ahead in this, and I'm looking to hit my FU money number within about 5 to 7 years, and I'm trying to speed up the process at which I get there just because I think it'd be fun. Now here's the cool part. I'd keep making videos at that point. I'd keep posting to my blog at that point. I'd keep teaching internet marketing, personal finance, how to retire early, because I love this stuff. I'm passionate about doing this. So it's not about getting to a point where I don't have to do this anymore, because I love doing this. But it's getting to a point to where that's all I have to do is that which I love and that which I get enjoyment out of. And then I can just do that all the time. And that makes for an incredibly fun life. The last thing I'm going to touch on here is the requirement for flexibility. When you get to the point where you're at 25x your numbers, sitting in an account, and you're ready to retire early, having flexibility is really, really important. What if the market goes down? What if your portfolio doesn't make as much money? You know what? That's where you can go to Chiang Mai on a 6-month visa and live for $500, $600, $700 a month, spend even less, and have a year where you can spend $15,000 instead of $35,000 and still hit your number. Now, playing the global arbitrage game is absolutely brilliant. It's something I've done for a few years now. It's something you can do too, but know that flexibility is important as you get to this FU number. And the last thing, I promise this is actually the last thing. If you don't feel like the 25x or the 4% withdrawal rate, the safe withdrawal rate number is secure enough, if you're like, ooh man, that sounds a little bit risky, go with 30x your number, right? So pick your number, whatever your lifestyle is for 50 grand a year, make it 30x. So do 1.5 million if it needs to be. Or if you're at 30 grand a year to live off of, that'd be $900,000 for you to live off of. And that would be the conservative way of going about it. And I like playing a little bit conservative sometimes, but ultimately we're building, or if you've been watching my other channels, I'm building a business online that is really, really getting to a point of being near hands off. And that's generating cash flow as well. So there are ways to supplement this. It's not a hard set rule. It's more of kind of like a target to shoot at. Because if we don't have big goals and if we don't have targets we're shooting at, we sometimes don't have the motivation to dig in deep and to put in the work and to hustle hard. It was when I really dug into my business was when I was ready to get rid of my student loans. And I had about $50,000 in student loan debt sitting on my shoulders. And my wife and I just said, you know what, it's time to get this done. And we dug deep and we started putting literally $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month away towards paying off my student loan debt. That's amazing. It became a game. It was fun. We didn't have to really suffer in our lifestyle at all. It was still enjoyable. Now we're turning that kind of fire hose that we had pointed at that into this FU money account, into our index funds. And in future videos, I'm going to do a whole personal finance playlist here for you. I'm going to talk more about the investing side of things. What are index funds? What's an asset allocation? But I wanted to give you this big picture idea because you can grow an FU money fund if you work in a traditional job, right? You can do it. There's no need to be an independent entrepreneur, location independent entrepreneur, or an internet entrepreneur to do this. You can do this from a day job. And in fact, most of the people I've read about who have done this worked traditional jobs and they learned how to live on a little and they hustled, and they put every extra penny they could into their investment accounts. It just became a game. It became fun, and they were able to unlock and break out of the traditional rat race system in their 30s, some in their 20s, a lot in their 40s, which is pretty special compared to, my parents worked late into their 60s and they're on a fixed income at this point. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here. I do thank you very much for your time. I hope this idea of FU money has got you inspired, and I hope that it makes sense. I would really like to know, if you've watched this far, leave me a quick comment. Did this make sense? Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, just put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. If you're interested in the study, it's called the Trinity Study. I will link to it in the description below, and go ahead and give a subscribe. Click the subscribe button here and let me know that you're interested in more, and I will be putting out more videos. And if you subscribe, you'll get them as they're released. Thank you again for your time. I am Miles Beckler, and make today a great day.